Not The Footy Show.
10 years now this team hasn't played in the final series. What has to change at the Tigers?
We're in the process of changing that, and no doubt people continually refer to 10 years, but it's about the future and where we're going. That's one thing that I've spoken about quite a bit, about the transformation of what we're doing at the club. You saw a lot of youth out there. We have, I think, 12 blokes sitting on the sideline. So we will be a different team next year. But what we have got now, we've got a lot of experience with these younger guys moving forward and understanding what it takes to play first grade.
Be the ball.
G'day everybody, welcome to another edition of Not The Footy Show. Yes, 2 episodes in 1 week. I'm joined by Mr. Robb Cox. Hello, Coxsmith.
G'day mate, how are you?
Good. I'm Warrick Nicolson. This is episode 243 of Not The Footy Show. And mate, we teased this last episode. We teased the fact we'd be talking Tigers. We'd be talking Tiger Town. And not only would we be talking Tiger Town, we'd be talking Queensland Town as well, because apparently there's an opening up there as well. But is there an opening at the Tigers? That is the question that we are jumping into on this episode. This is the coaching merry-go-round. We're going to start off with the most important question of the day. Sideshow Robb again, or do you want something different?
Yeah, let's do something different.
Okay, I'll give you that rest of the show to think about it if you want.
I know what it is. I just thought of it.
Oh,
I just thought of it. You know the Jaws poster? You know Jaws, the shark?
Which, the original one?
Yeah, you know the Jaws poster. Just remove the Jaws bit off it and have the shark coming up out of the water.
And just do Robb?
I don't know why. I just thought of it.
Okay, we'll do our best. I wanted to start off with a quote here from the West Tigers chairman, Coxsmith. This basically is the 24 hours after the game where they got done by the Tigers. This is Haji Pentelis. Madge was asked in yesterday's press conference that he answered yes, that he was very positive on that, as in, is he the man for the job? The man is well credentialed. He's got a premiership to his name. He is absolutely committed, passionate and dedicated. There is no questioning that whatsoever. But, and as Tony Kornheiser says, there's always a but. The results this year have not borne out to our expectations, and more importantly, the expectations of our fans and members. And so part of the review process is why the club is doing so well off the field, if you heard that one before, and why there seems to be such a disconnect between that level of success off the field and the performances on the field. That's something that has to be addressed. Whew.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy comments from the West Tigers chairman.
Yeah, but look, here's the thing, mate, is the thing that's in Madge's favour is that he's got another 2 years to go. He's signed until the end of 2023. If they get rid of him, apparently there's a clause, from what I understand, there's a clause in his contract that says he has to be paid out for 1 full year if his contract was pulled short at any time, which means they'd have to pay him out about 800 grand. I'm not sure they've got it.
Well, if they're so good off the field, do they not have the money?
Well, it's a good question. I'd suggest that they probably don't have the 800 grand to pay him willy-nilly like that. I think Madge is going to survive. I'm not sure that the results are there for him to survive. I think the stats would say, especially with his time at the Tigers, that he has definitely not overachieved. In saying that, mate, no, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure you do because you've got the computer in front of you.
I've got the computer in front of me.
Looking?
So I think it's 3 years he's been at the Tigers. Is that right? So 2019 he joined.
Third year.
Yep. So just to give people a bit of background, at the South Sydney Rabbitohs, which was his first job, he coached 153 times for 85 wins at a success rate of 55.6%. One premiership and one grand final in that run. Then he was removed and the Tigers picked him up in 2019. In 2019, the Tigers were 11 and 13 in 24 games. and they finished 9th, I do believe. Let me just double check that for everyone. Yes, they did, and they were a point out of the top 8. Now, the big joke with the Tigers is, they finish 9th every year. Not true. In 2020, in a 20-game season, Michael Maguire, 7 wins and 13 losses. And where do you think the Tigers finished, Coxsmith?
It's 11th.
11th, correct. And then this year, the Tigers go backwards again. Or they improved. My bad. How dare I say that? Or did they improve? I guess it's 24 games versus 20, but 8 wins, 16 losses in 24 games. And the Tigers finish in 13th. They've gone back 2 positions in each of the 2 subsequent years of Maguire being in charge.
Yep.
That's not a rosy picture, especially given, I think, the fact that one of the arguments made for Maguire is, he's stuck with this roster. Well, he's had 3 years to make amends on this roster, and they've actually gone backwards. I'm not saying he's had carte blanche to basically bring everyone he wants in, but he's obviously had the ability to get rid of players over this time. And they did cast off quite a bit of cap space in this last off-season. They're going to do it again, obviously, this off-season. But that win percentage at the Tigers, just to bring it up, it's 38.2%.
Yeah, it's not good. I think there's only 1 or 2 coaches in the competition that have got a worse record than Maguire as it stands at the moment with this particular club. The thing with the Tigers is there's issues that are beyond Madge, and there's some issues that can be solved by Madge, maybe, or that he has his hands directly connected to. But there's other issues. I mean, they haven't. When was the last time they made a marquee signing? And I'm not talking about
who Justin Pascoe considers to be a marquee signing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about paying overs for Packer or Mbai or Josh Reynolds or anyone like that. Where they paid overs. I said Mbai. They paid Mbai up to the tune
twice.
Up to the tune of $800,000.
Yeah.
The bloke's not worth 400. I mean, and I'm not being harsh, but I didn't see great things from him at the Bulldogs. All of a sudden, he turned into a golden boy by going to the Tigers. And they've put up with it for years. But they can't attract players. Now, is it the coach or is it the CEO? Or is it a combination? I'm not sure.
Is it only just attract players though, Coxsmith? Because I think part of it has to be retention, doesn't it?
Well, their retention's terrible, but it's been that you can't blame that on Madge. They lost their 3 big players not under Madge. They lost Tedesco, Woods, and Moses, not under Madge. So you can't blame that on him. I'm all for throwing a coach under the bus if they're not performing, but that was out of his hands. You could probably more blame a player manager that's no longer in business, but is in business, but isn't in business anymore, for that, because he just wanted to control the club. But here's the thing: let's just quickly look at the Tigers. Their number 1 spine. Okay, everyone knows that the spine is the most important part of the team. Now, who's their fullback? I mean, we had.
That's such a good question. They don't even know.
Right. So, but we had Dane Laurie this year.
Dane Laurie.
Good player.
I like him.
6? Who's their 6?
Well, their
Nobody
6
knows who their 6
most of the year was Dewey, or however you say his name. He was in the team.
Yep.
He played 7 games, 8 games at 5/8, and he played 6 games at centre, and then he finished the year with 5 games or 6 games at 5/8, and he got injured. We've both been on this camp in the podcast we've done this year. I think we both agree he's not a 6. He's not a guy who needs to step up and run the side, because he doesn't. And there was a really telling part of that Tales from Tiger Town bit that they left in for the last episode. And it was Madge, I think, just before, I think he just moved him back to 5/8, I think. I'm not sure which game it was. And he actually, he would have probably said this 1,000 times during the year, but one they left in was he called out Dewey for not getting involved. And he said, this is where get Adam to get in there. And I just want him touching the ball the whole time. And I don't think that happened. And I think that's a bit what Dewey is. He can be really good if the ball gets to him. but I don't know if he's, the guy that you want to be in there alongside Brooks, who's obviously still a halfback at this stage. So yeah, if you want to argue, you say that Dewey's the 6 and Brooks is the 7. Who's the 9?
Well, is the 9 Little or is it Simpkins or who is the 9? Is it Mbai?
Mbai's no longer there. He's now going to your club. Aren't you lucky?
Yeah.
I think Simpkins got ability, but it was really strange to see how he was used this year by Maguire, because he supplanted Liddell pretty quickly. I'm just looking at the stats here, and Little was the starting hooker for the first 5 rounds, and all of a sudden it was Simpkins' team for 4 weeks. And then Simpkin was pulled out of first grade.
And I thought Simpkin went well. I don't know why he was pulled, whether it's just because he's young and he needed the time away. I'm not too sure. But the fact remains is that their spine is rotating. We're not getting other than the halfback. We're not really getting a solid a sense of solidarity there. It's not remaining the same. Now I know when things aren't working, you should probably change them, but you also need some stability. Going to their halfback, their chief playmaker. I've said this last week. He needs a new club, and I think the club needs him to have a new club. But who do you replace him with? Okay, you've got Hastings coming next year. Jackson Hastings, who I think is more of a 6 than a 7. He's more of your second fiddle playmaker. They say he's bulked up a little bit, and they slated him to even play a ball playing lock kind of a role. But they need a ball playing. They need a playmaker in that team.
Playmaker, that's what they need. Yeah. Well, Mbai was their chief creative player when he was playing fullback. Now, if that doesn't underscore things, I don't know what does. And he was actually setting up tries. If you want to use the stats argument, he was setting up tries at fullback.
But I guess the main question is, why have they gone backwards? Is it other teams have improved and they haven't, clearly, or is it because they've actually gone backwards? This year was a pretty soft competition. Not the hardest year to get into the 8.
They also chose to get rid of Benji. Remember at the start of the year, they said that Benji, you've done enough for us. Off you go. Yep. And that was probably the decision that I looked at and just went, I don't understand it, because Benji, once he got back in the team, actually played pretty good football last year. And Madge going into his 3rd year, unless it's a personality thing, I didn't understand it, because 3rd year Madge, you got to really push for that semi-final spot. If you don't make it, you don't make it. And look, all the arguments will come out. Oh, Tigers 9th, ha 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 ha. But the moment that he moved Benji on, I was like, I don't know what this year is supposed to be. I really don't. Is it a rebuilding year? Or is it, you think you're going to contend? And then you look at the Tiles from Tiger Town comments, and he had a firm belief this team was going places. And if anything underscored the performance, 38-0 drubbing by the Bulldogs in the last round, is those players, they didn't show much belief back, did they?
Look, I don't think Madge needs to be all that loyal to the players he's got, because most of them won't show up for him. You saw that in the last round. Most of them won't show up and play for the coach. They got flogged by the wooden spooner. That in itself is probably the most embarrassing performance of this year for that team. And it's that was there's certain things you can blame the coach for. But when it comes down to you playing the wooden spooners to maybe play for a contract or to play for your coach's contract, and you don't show up, then that's on you, baby. That's not on the coach. You can put a lot of things on the coach, but you can't put attitude like that on the coach. But now we see this week in this article that now it's going to be up to the players whether Madge stays or not. I mean, who said that? Who did say that? Was that Pascoe that said that?
I don't know. I think you sent me something that suggested
because
that.
Whoever said that sounds like they've been on the wacky tobacco. If that's what they're going to do, if they're going to let the lunatics run the asylum, then someone has been smoking something.
You use the word attitude there, and that'll be the dictating element in whether the players back him or not. At the course of the season, as I said, the Tigers finished 8 wins and 16 losses. It's not good. It's 13th in the comp. The highest they ranked through the entire year was 11th. That was once. They were 14th, 15th, 13th, 15th, 14th, 13th, 11th, 14th. They got back to 12th, and then they lost that game against the Warriors. If you remember, that was an absolutely horrendous performance. Then they bounced back with 2 wins against Canterbury and North Queensland, those 2 perennial powerhouses, and got to 13th. And then they finished the season losing to Cronulla, Penrith, and then Canterbury. But the attitude thing I want to bring up, you can say an 8-16 record, it's not good. It's not atrocious, but it's not good. But here's the kicker. The Tigers won 2 games twice all year in a row.
Yep.
Otherwise, it was 2 losses, a win, 4 losses, a win, a loss, a win, a loss, 2 wins, 3 losses, a win, 2 losses, 2 wins, and 3 losses. Now, if you want to focus on attitude, it's the inability for the players to actually put any kind of streak of performance together. And that was, again, part of that West Tigers doco. You could see he'd go, how good was winning? You could see him. He talked to the players and go, don't you love this feeling? And then a week later, he's sitting in the dressing room after the match, just flabbergasted. Like, where'd that come from? You guys have I don't want to use the word, but haven't shown up. I'll be nice. I'll use that word again, Yeah. And that would seem to be Madge the whole year. It was like, I believe in you. And then he'd stand there in front of them and it was like, you don't have it, boys.
Here's the thing, though. Here's a little nugget from some people that know, okay? And we know Madge won't be listening to our podcast, but if anyone who knows Madge, who has Madge's ear, I've heard on more than one occasion from players who have been coached by Madge, and mate, I'm not making this up. The players go off him because he flogs them. He's a very, very hard taskmaster. He doesn't let up on them. He absolutely annihilates them in pre-season, which I get. And then there'll be phases during the year where he will flog them again and again and again. I think he's definitely a taskmaster coach. And what happens with those kind of coaches is they tend to lose the room a little bit within their careers at certain times. I think if Madge could learn to ease up a little bit and not be so intense, that might be a bit of a key. I mean, players these days in this era where this generation of players, they don't really like being flogged too hard. They can still turn up, but they're not enjoying that real hardcore grind all the time. And I think that's what happens with some coaches. They get a generation gap where they don't know how to communicate or how to express themselves with a certain generation of player. So that'd be my suggestion. But I don't think they're going to fire him because I don't think they can afford to. Okay. Which means, I mean, Phil Gould has said this a number of times. You either change the players or you change the coach. Because if something's not working, that combination of player and coach isn't going to work going forward. So do they have a big clean out? How many can they clean out? How many do they want to pay to go somewhere else? Because the Tigers over the years have done plenty of this, sacking coaches and players and paying for those players to play somewhere else. So what that says to me is, first of all, the fish rots from the head down. There's time for a change in the head office because things just are clunking along. They're only, they're not going smoothly. There's no, what's the 3-year plan? What's the plan for next year?
Will that be Tim Sheens' role? Because he's coming in as effectively head of football to set up or to develop what pathway situations have been set up, to have an influence on the recruitment, but he's stuck in the UK.
Yep.
I get the sense that he's been brought in to look after Pascoe, but I don't sense that the Tigers as a whole want to go through a worse year in 2022 to come out the other side in 2023. To me, and that was if you gutted the roster more than what they've done already. It just smells like Maguire's the guy that's going to cop it here. That's to me, that's what it smells like, because you remember that line, I go back to Haji Pentelis, is that, off the field, we're doing tremendous. Off the field, we're flying. Pascoe said it, and he even made that special effort. Remember, I mentioned it in the time that he visited the Meriden guy. He said, we're such a good team off the field. Once we can, marry that up to the on-field performances, we're going well. And I'm just like,
yeah. You know what, though?
Stop shoving it down my throat.
And anyone that does that, to me, when they start telling you how good they're going, when they're not really going good, they're trying to play the Jedi mind trick on you.
Oh.
Who says they're going so great off the field? Says who?
How many times has he said it? Now even the chairman said it. Oh.
But what are they doing off the field? Tell me, what are they doing off the field?
They've got a new centre of excellence, mate. It's going to be part of the community that no one can use for the next 3 years while we're still locked down.
I just want to know what move. Are they like a Storm? Are they into property and other businesses that they're kicking goals? I don't know. I know the Storm do amazing things in other facets of business because they're set up like a business. They've got big property holdings of property. They've got mining interests and things like that. What are the Tigers doing so good away from the field that someone's happy to stand on top of the mountain and tell you how good they're doing? I want to know what they're doing. Whatever's so good,
let us know, because we'd like to know.
Yeah,
I want to bring it back to this question for you, Coxsmith. We had 5 coaches, I think, change last season. 6 in total, if you conclude Morris the start of this season. How many of those teams do you reckon had improved seasons in 2021 who got rid of their coach from 2020? I'll give you, there's six sides.
Okay. So there's Cronulla, because we spoke about Morris. On paper, where did they finish last year? I mean, let's just
they
talk
made the
about
finals.
that.
They were in 8th.
Okay, so they've done the same thing again this year.
No, they've missed the finals this time.
That's right. Sorry, they missed the finals over the Titans.
So they actually went backwards. They were 10-10 last year in the regular season.
Yep.
And lost the game in the finals. And then they got rid of Morris after he was 2-3, and they replaced him with Hannay/Fitzgibbon, and they went 8-11 under Hannay, and they missed the finals. So they went backwards and they changed their coach.
Okay. So what I say there is, for an interim coach to be on the edge of the finals is probably not a bad effort, but you'd have to say that they've clearly gone backwards. In saying that, they will go forwards next year, I believe, with Fitzgibbon.
It's a funny spot being that sort of 10 and 14, because improvement isn't that far away, but they also weren't that far away from the finals this year, and we don't know. We can't say for certain that 10 and 14 gets you on the cusp of the finals next year. It shouldn't. If we recall, 4 years ago, every team pretty much was 15 and 9. And if you weren't 15 and 9, you didn't make the finals. So it's a big gap.
Yeah, I think Cronulla have got a better year coming. A lot due to obviously the new coach coming on board. He's an unproven coach as far as a head coach goes, but he's certainly been a very, very good assistant coach at all levels over the last 7 or 8 years. But I think they've also recruited pretty good. Where they've been deficient, I believe, is in the halves this year. Chad Townsend, Matt Moylan through a lot of injury, and Sean Johnson through one thing or another. I think bringing Nico Hines into the team is going to help them out. And also just the stability that I think Fitzgibbon will offer. I think they'll go one better next year, and they'll make the 8 next year.
Okay.
I believe. But for this year, they've gone back a peg.
Yeah. Okay. Give me another team.
So the next team that's changed coaches
will
be the Warriors.
Yep.
Yep.
So they got rid of Stephen Kearney after 6 games last year. And then they replaced him with Todd Payton. And then this year, Nathan Brown came on board. So do you reckon they went forwards or backwards?
Yeah. I'd say they went slightly forward.
They actually went backwards. They finished 8 and 16, and last year they were 8 and 12. So their four losses worse off. I know there was more games, but they also the percentage definitely went back the other way.
The ratio.
Payton was 6 and 8 last year in his last 14 games, and Brown 8 and 16. Yeah, I didn't like what I saw from him this year at all.
I didn't like the last 2 or 3 weeks.
No,
I didn't mind what I saw in the middle. There was a bit of courage shown there in the middle, and I think whenever we talk about the Warriors of 20 and 21, we've got to understand the fact that they're away from home and
of 22. You've seen the headline. They're going to be based at Redcliffe next year.
Are they really?
It's happening again. Whether it's for the whole year or not, it's not a matter. But I feel sorry for them because, I mean, as you say, what can you put down to? I just didn't like how they dealt with that RTS. and shoving him off to the wing in what was going to be his last year. I know that Reece Walsh was the golden child and all the rest of it, but I just it's been a missed opportunity with him the last few years, RTS. And I mean, today Tohu Harris won their Player of the Year award and he played 15 games this year. He's pretty important to them. Let's go with your Dragons. They were 7 and 13 last year.
Yeah, mate. Look, I don't care where they ended up on the board.
They've gone up, buddy. They've gone up,
mate. They're playing an awful brand of football that's dour and very much like the coaches, dour, and I don't think they're not the type of team that's going to grind out a win just with that kind of play. I think their recruitment has been ordinary, and I've got no confidence going forward.
Well, remember we spoke earlier in the year and they were flying. They were 4 from 5, and I was just steadfast in my belief that they'd played a really soft draw, and they weren't the team that everyone was saying they were.
Yep.
They won 4 games in the first 5 rounds, and they won 4 games the rest of the way. They actually lost their last 3, 6, 8 games in a row.
Yep.
And to put that in perspective, they played teams that they could have beaten: Gold Coast, Canberra, Cowboys. Those 3 games are winnable. They had some other tougher games, admittedly, but you just finished the season. They were in 7th spot when they won their last game in round 16, and they finished 8 and 16.
I'm not blaming the barbecue one little bit, although Griffin would be blaming the barbecue. I don't blame the barbecue any way, shape, or form. I'd say to the board at St George, please start looking for a new coach now, and because Griffin's got this next year on his contract. Look for a new one now, and please, consult them to any signings going forward. Otherwise, you're going to get locked in to mediocrity for the next 3 years. If you don't get out of it at the end of next year.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you don't.
Sorry, my bad. You go.
I was going to say, if you don't get out of it by the end of 22, you'll be locked into it until the end of 2024. So. Please don't make the same mistakes you've made in the past by signing an average coach. Get a good coach, whether it be a young coach or not. I had a bit of hope for Dean Young. The only thing that I didn't like about Dean Young is he'd been there in the mediocre years. He'd also been there when they won a premiership. But if you want to settle for mediocrity and finishing, anywhere between 13th and 11th, stick with what you're doing, because that's exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
That's all right. I was to say 2 years ago they brought in Phil Gould to do a review at the end of the year, and something Phil often referred to that off season was that he'd made some suggestions, but they pretty much had been ignored, and that's why he wasn't involved with them. He basically said these are things that you need to fix, and instead of bringing him on board, which they probably could have. He's now gone to the Warriors, and then he's now at the Bulldogs. So is that a missed opportunity for the Dragons? The next team is the Cowboys, mate.
Yeah, Cowboys have gone backwards, I'd suggest.
Technically, they've gone up. They went from 5 and 15 last year to 7 and 17 this year. But I didn't see it. They finished second last, for crying out loud. 1 win from round 14 to 25. And that was over your Dragons. 1 win.
Yeah, how good.
Yeah.
Mate.
They got as high as 7.
I'm so disinterested in them.
Yeah.
I'd say fail.
Yeah.
I don't care if they've come up.
Bulldogs. 3 and 17 last year, 3 and 21 this year. Did they go backwards under Barrett?
Mate, they've gone backwards for the last 2 years. Really?
I don't think they could have. I felt like 2 years ago they dropped to that low ebb and they just haven't moved. They've just sort of it's just been that the whole time. Dean Pay was 1 and 8 to start the year last year, and then Baz comes in, and if they don't beat the Tigers in that last round, Barrett is 2 and 22 for the season. There's a lot of work to do next year.
But still, 3 and 21 ain't all that good either, mate. Let's let's be honest. I mean,
It is.
I don't know. I don't know if Baz would be, puffing his chest out on that one win against the Tigers.
Look, they did lose Michael Morgan after 2 games to start the year, but yeah, just a very disappointing all-round effort from them this year. The last team is Brisbane, because believe it or not, my friend, the only way is up. Sorry, I shouldn't be singing.
Yeah, they improved. They improved. They looked all right in the last 5 weeks. Yep.
So 3-17 in 2020 and 7-17 in 2021. 2 wins from the last 4, 3 wins from the last 9 or 10. It's not pretty, but it's not atrocious.
Yeah, mate, I think Kevy, while not over the moon with that, would be okay with it. It's improvement. It'll get him another year or 2, I would suggest. I think, like you say, the only way's up when you're kind of hanging out down there in the bottom.
And a big element of all this is that obviously Fafita went in the off-season. Carrigan only played 8 games. That vaunted forward pack that we kept getting told about with Lodge and all these other guys, Pangai Jr., they actually played better football without him. It's pretty telling.
Yeah.
It's pretty telling indeed.
Yeah.
That amazing forward pack they'd assembled. It actually, results went up when they got rid of over half that forward pack. I guess the message here as we wrap this part of the show up is, if you're going to make a change with a bad side, you're not going to make massive strides the next year. Look at every example, apart from the Broncos were the team with the biggest uptick. But as much as you'd say, 4 more wins this year, you wouldn't say they were, a phenomenal football side this year. They were very poor in a lot of games. So just as we temper everything we've said about Maguire and the Tigers and off the field, on the field, just know that change doesn't mean you're going to get value. The big test will be for all these coaches that came in 2021 is, what do they back it up with next year? Because 2 years is a long time in coaching in rugby league, isn't it?
Oh, mate, totally. And it can be the difference between a premiership and a wooden spoon. I mean, there's a big, things change in probably 4-week blocks in rugby league.
Yep.
It can all the coach's career can kind of hang by the balance by one injury or one loss that shouldn't have happened. So you couldn't pay me to be an NRL coach. I couldn't do it. It's just a roller coaster ride. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got great respect for all of them, all 16 of those head coaches. I got respect for not only their footballing nous, because they'd all be smart, but also with their resilience, with the crap that they'd cop from fans and from the media and from everything else. So hats off to them. But on the flip side of that, when you put yourself forward as an NRL coach, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Correct.
You know you're going to get scrutinised. You know you're going to lose games, and hopefully you're going to win some games. But maybe I've been a little bit tough on the Dragons coach. But what the other thing that people have got to remember is, you're passionate about your footy team. You want your team to win. And when you see some of the decisions that get made at that board level that affects the football team down, you shake your head and wonder why you even follow it sometimes.
I hear. Look, we'll be back after the break to have a quick look at the teams for the finals that have been named since we did the preview at the start of the week. And also Paul Green, gone from Queensland.
Not the Footy Show. I love the smell of the finals in the morning.
All right, we're back. It's episode 243 of Not the Footy Show. Coxsmith, people have been, they've been crying out to ask, where's your beautiful face gone? Like those hair replacement ads on TV. And I've had to tell them, look, at the end of the day, I just can't afford his likeness rights. That's the issue.
Yeah, that, and also I haven't had a haircut for 15 weeks.
I'm pretty scruffy today, I'll be honest.
So I'm looking like the wild man of Borneo at the moment, and
We did actually. I've already probably put it up, but just for people's reference, we're going with the Jaws poster for Robb today, and he looks tremendous. Grant Croxford, long-time listener, often commenter, said he just asked basically, "Have you had a botched facelift?" Was his question, and you won't appear again until your legal case has been resolved. So, Dr. Kevorkian did a wonderful job on you. So.
Thanks very much, Grant.
Speaking of Dr. Kevorkian, he's worked his magic up there in Queensland because Paul Green has, has he fallen on his sword, Coxsmith, or has he been tapped on the shoulder?
Oh, mate, they would have just said to him that we're not going to renew you. That's as clear as day that they weren't going to renew, and they just probably said to him, "We'll give you the the option to." Say that you're off to somewhere else.
Declare you're after an NRL coaching job.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which I'm not sure there'll be anyone that'll bite on that little bait. But I certainly don't take the bait as far as he just walked away from that, because that job there is about a $300,000 a year job.
Plum gig.
And you don't walk away from that with no new job to go to unless you've done it for 10 years and you're looking for an out. He did it for 1 year. They had no success other than the last game in a dead rubber, and they've obviously looked at. They're going to be looking at. I'd suggest Billy Slater and Cameron Smith or as a partnership or as one or the other. And Green wasn't in their plans going forward, unfortunately.
No. When it first hit, I thought, they've opened the door for Uncle Benny to come back for a year, but he was pretty quick to rule himself out for the main gig. It doesn't mean that he won't necessarily offer some sage wisdom and advice for Billiam Slater if he gets the gig, which seems to be a fait accompli at this stage. Smith did say he's not interested in the full-time gig. JT said that he isn't ready for a full-time gig. Is Billy Slater ready for the full-time gig?
No.
That's my concern.
I don't think so. I get the feeling that the best option would be to maybe, and I know this is it'd be a new thing for NRL and above league football, but to have co-coaches. I think Smith and Slater as a combination would probably be a good thing. That's what I think. I don't know if they'll go that way. Smith just might be an advisor, a royal advisor or something. Slater would certainly not be ready for an NRL coach's gig. Maybe they think he can get by with this if he surrounds himself with Thurston and Smith and whoever else wants to join the party.
One thing that is often said about Origin is that Queensland's got the monopoly on passion. But it seems to me that they're trying to do the old Freddy Fittler thing here, aren't they? They're trying to catch a lightning are they copying New South Wales? Is that what's happening? Because it seems like that's what they're doing.
Yeah, well, maybe, mate. I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to emulate and then beat the best. So at the moment, New South Wales are probably a little bit of a better organisation and team, and you'd never hear a Queenslander say that. But yeah, I think they are trying to do a bit of that.
Because there's very similar progressions here. Fittler came in 2018 after the Daly years, and Daly had turned things around finally. In 2014, they won a series. Who was New South Wales coach in 20? They won 2014. They didn't win again for 3 years, did they? It was 2018 the next time. So they lost. They lost 3 under Daly after the 2014 thing. All right. So no one, they're in a bit of a hole, etc. Then they bring in Freddie. He's had that head coaching experience with Lebanon and obviously the Roosters. It just goes magical. They win 2 in a row. Yep. Queensland, it's not too dissimilar where they're at right now, because they had the miracle win of 2020, and that was with a veteran coach though who came in for that one-off effort. And then Green's gone backwards. They got smashed in 2 straight series with Kevy under centre. It just seems like they're going, well, if we're going to throw Billy in, coming off a pretty comprehensive series loss, everyone's saying new dynasty for New South Wales. I love that saying. Such garbage. It just seems like it's, if you're going to do it, if you're going to throw Billiam Slater in there. This isn't the worst idea. I'm not saying he's ready, but when you weigh up where they're at versus what New South Wales did with Fittler, it looks a little bit similar to me.
Yeah, you're probably right, mate. I think Billy obviously was a legend player, and he's a smart dude. He's obviously got his own ideas on how things should be run. I mean, there was talk that they offered it up to him last year, and he did all but, kind of sign on the dotted line, and then they parachuted Green in. So, I'd suggest that somebody or a group of people on the board at the QRL have said, we pulled the wrong rein with Green. We're not going to go down that road again. We need to get some of the younger legends back into the fold as far as coaching goes, and Slater and Smith would be certainly at the top of that list. I'd suggest with the assistant coaches, the assistant roles they've been doing, not only with a bit of Origin but a bit of club football as well. So, yeah.
But of course,
Billy.
We wish Billy all the best, don't we? We hope he loses every game, but we wish him all the best.
Absolutely, I hope he loses every game, and I don't wish him the best at all. He's had enough of the best over the years. So I hope for an epic failure, to be perfectly honest.
Let's move on from Origin as much as you love it. I just wanted to quickly have a look at what teams have been selected for the finals week 1. We've already given you our tips. We're all going favourites at this stage. Melbourne over Manly, the Roosters over Titans, Panthers over Rabbitohs, and Parramatta over Newcastle. There are some selection and team changes that I guess just are worth bringing up and just giving our 2 cents worth on. And the first one off the rank is, how awesome does that Melbourne forward pack and bench look?
Yeah, mate. Desi said, I saw a bit of news today. Desi said, with a bit of tongue in cheek, but Desi threw it out there that maybe Melbourne are impossible to beat. And maybe he's right. Who knows? But when they've got their full complement, geez, they look strong on paper.
Bromwich, Smith, Welch, Kafusi, Bromwich, Finucane, and then a bench of Grant, Kamikamitha, Asofa Solomona, and Hines. It's delicious. It's got everything covered. It's got people who can play longer minutes if they have to. The 2 forwards off the bench are both impact players. Harry Grant, we know how good he is, and then Nico can just fill any gap that is needed. The only place I look at as any real weakness, I think their 3-quarter line's still a little bit sus defensively. Even if Avakar was there, I'd say the same thing. But Pappy's coming back. I just love that team. The only thing from a Manly point of view is I'm surprised they didn't make room for Sipley. I thought he's actually been a bit of an impact player for them this year. They've gone with Sean Kepi instead of him, which I just thought Sipley, given the minutes that he'll play, which are very minimal, he can make an impact in that 10 minutes. But credit to Manly, their team looks pretty good. It just doesn't look anywhere near as good as Melbourne. Curtis Sirenin can't get a run in first grade. The Roosters, this is the best forward pack they have put on the field almost the entire season. JWH, Verrills, Takiaho, Crichton, Tupanua, Radley. And then for the first time in at least 8 weeks, they have some depth in the forwards on the bench. Isaac Liu, Egan Butcher, and Fletcher Baker. Are we having to change our mind about the Roosters going sort of out in the second week?
No.
Is that because Lachlan Lamb is the halfback and Sam Walker's on the bench again?
Yeah, maybe Sam Walker will start. Maybe we'll see maybe a little bit of ducks and drakes from Robbo this week. I'm not sure. Or maybe, you know what, Sam Walker could be on the field on the first rotation of a forward as well. I mean, you might find Lachlan Lamb may go to 13 as a middle forward, ball playing forward. So you could see that he's not a tiny body. He can play in the middle. But yeah, I'm not going to change my mind about that. I'm going to say that they'll win this week, but the second week they'll get flushed.
The Titans did reveal this week that David Fifita has actually got a rib cartilage injury, and apparently that's the reason he's been coming off the bench. And it's been
Would
so long.
Would you say that? Would you say that? If
why
he
would
did?
you tell anybody?
Why would you
insane.
say that to anyone?
Unless he said it. I just saw it was reported that he had a rib. Anyway, so he'll be coming off the bench again. You can just guarantee that. And so the Roosters have to counter Proctor and Fermor with Crichton and Tupanua. That's going to be hard.
Do you think JWH and Radley will be waiting for Fafita to come on and testing and finding out which
They've
rib
just
it
given
is?
Radley a good reason to hit someone below the head. I mean, you just made the game plan easy for young Victor.
Wow, why would you say it?
Well, I don't mind the team as a
anyway.
whole, the Titans, but I will also say this. Can we just settle down on the AJ Brimson to 5'8" garbage? Jaden Campbell, I like what I've seen, but just a little bit of perspective, please. Brimson is a very handy player at fullback. They are missing him big time. Panthers, no real surprises for them. Everyone, as you'd expect. The only real selection decision they had to make was Spencer Leno or Matt Eisenhuth or Targo on the bench. I probably would have gone Eisenhuth if he's fit rather than Leno, but it's not a bad side. I guess the question with Penrith is, do they move kick out of the bench and start Liam Martin?
I wouldn't. I'd do what they've been doing. My only weird one with all of that is Momorowski and Crichton. I think they're the wrong way around.
Yeah, I reckon Crichton needs to be in the centres. Agreed.
Well, what I think is Crichton needs to be in the centres in attack, and then if you need to, then flip them over in defence.
How does Paul Momorowski throw a dummy if he's on the wing? It's his whole game plan, mate. It's his whole game plan. The Bunnies have gone with take.
Throw a dummy.
Some wingers would take that dummy. When do they play Parramatta? Blake Tafe is at fullback. Walker and Reynolds in the halves, although we will wait till kick-off or now before kick-off to see what that actually is the way it pans out. Jaden Sewer is in the back row and Jay Arrow back to the bench. I actually don't mind that. I think Arrow's been a bit of a force when he's come off the bench. But I think you don't, if Sewer's not getting involved, which he's prone to do, I don't think you waste much time and pull him off if that's not working. But it's the best team. South can pretty.
Sorry, go on.
Gee whiz, it's a family program, Coxsmith. Parramatta Eels, speaking of family programs and looking after people by giving them an easy first round walk through the semis. I'm being harsh. They've got Campbell Gillard back. They've got Ray Stone at hooker for Joey Lussick, who's injured.
Ray Stone played himself into that, mate. With his defensive efforts last week, Ray Stone was going to play this week, come hell or high water.
I want to ask you why Sean Lane and Murata Niokore are the second rowers when Isaiah Papali'i is on the bench, Bryce Cartwright's on the bench, and Ryan Madison's 18th man. What is Brad Arthur doing?
Don't know about the Papali'i thing, mate. He's been their best forward all year, and
they moved into
starting
prop.
the game and playing as many minutes as possible.
They moved into prop and he went out of the game, and now they're moving into the bench to play off the bench as a prop. I'm sticking with Para, but fair dinkum. Newcastle, they've named Dan Safidi. That's good for them. But Clemmer has also been named with the rib injury as well. I just can't get excited about Newcastle, even with Parramatta not having a hooker.
Yeah, I'm not excited about Newcastle at all.
Nice. Well, that's the weekend. Got that through the teams. We've given you some coaching stuff. We've gone for an hour. What is going on?
Yeah. Should we reconvene next week and see how wrong we got it?
Oh, we'll be wrong. There's no doubt we'll be wrong. Someone will get upset. I'm happy if it's Parramatta, but we'll see what happens. Everybody, you can grab us obviously on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a rating if you get so inclined, and I hope you've enjoyed.
Yeah, rating. We need a rating this week.
It'd be nice,
and a review even. But if you leave a negative one, then I don't want that.
To be fair, people haven't just been leaving ratings at all. They haven't been positive or negative, but so we haven't gone down in the rankings. But that's all good. We'll speak to you next time. Coxsmith, take us out.
I'll catch you next week, mate. Pep's there.
Not the Footy Show.
No worries. I'm going to cook a couple of burgers for my family.
I got a Wagyu steak porterhouse tonight.
Whoa.
Yeah, I splurged.
Wow.
I splurged.
Good on you, mate.
It looks tremendous.
Mate, as soon as we can get out of this lockdown, you and I are heading to a steakhouse. All right.
Oh, so much steak.
On my coin.
And then we'll go. Right. Then we'll turn around, and then we'll go back to it, and then we'll turn around, and then we'll go back.
Yeah. Whatever.
Not the Footy Show.
It's people's escape. It's people's relaxation, and we need to do everything in order to continue that great tradition of
Not the Footy Show.
Birthday boy.
Pepsi.